So now we embark on the final chapter and one of the most interesting of The Sacrament of Abortion by Ginette Paris, which is women's stories. What do women want? Josie, a woman of 31, comes to her therapy hour and reports her husband's complaints. He doesn't understand what she wants. One day she wants more intimacy, and the next she says she has no freedom, no time for herself. What, for heaven's sakes, does she really want? More intimacy as a couple or more space for herself? Josie admits she's sending a message to her husband and to her children. Sometimes I seem to be saying, back off a little so I can breathe. Then the next day I complain about his being cold and distant, and I wish we could spend more time together as lovers. I realize the message was not clear, but I can't seem to make the right connection. You might say I don't know what I want. I want both. I want closer intimacy and I want more time by myself. Her confusion can be explained by the relationship that exists between intimacy and autonomy. True contact, especially between lovers, assumes the need for autonomy has first been satisfied, that one is filled up during moments alone. And conversely, one cannot be too deficient at the feeling level if solitude is to be truly enjoyable and psychologically safe. In the language of archetypal psychology, we might say Josie is simultaneously deprived of Aphrodite and Artemis. She is missing both the deeply moving connection with her husband, Aphrodite, and the opportunity to get away and be far from the demands of children and domestic life, Artemis. Her three youngsters, like all normal preschool children, treat her like a domestic commodity. Even if she steals an hour or so at quiet moments of the day, perhaps when the children nap, she always feels like a soldier standing at attention, a sentinel at his post. For 24 hours a day, she is on maternal duty. My attention is always outward. I can't go for a walk or even read too engrossing a book because it upsets me when I'm interrupted every 10 minutes. No way can I pursue a train of thought. For me, real solitude would be guaranteed a full day of not responding to the needs of any other living thing, not even the cat, not even the potted plants. She is never really alone and is rarely deeply engaged with her husband. So sometimes she dreams of more intimate relationship and sometimes of taking off and becoming an Artemisian figure, an unattached version, light as a leaping doe and free as the single student she was before her marriage. Her time would be free, her body free, her mind free to apply to something that interests her. It is not that her desires are contradictory, but she must make adjustments in time, place, and psychological boundaries in order to live fully these two opposing realities and enjoy the contrast between them. After several sessions of going over this problem, Josie decided to try the following plan. The children would go to their babysitter's house for 2 days a week. The first day, Monday noon through Tuesday noon, would be just for herself, alone in her house, to enjoy peace and quiet. The second day, from Friday noon to Saturday noon, would be the time for the couple. They rediscovered the pleasure of making love Saturday morning when they're both well rested and will not be interrupted, and their relationship began to improve. After 2 months, Josie decided to take a biology course on Monday evenings to see if she was still capable of picking up her studies where she had left off. She followed this regime for 3 years. When her youngest child reached school age, Josie was ready, with her husband's support, to study full time. After a year's work, Josie had succeeded so well that her professors recommended her for a scholarship to work towards a master's degree in biology. At this moment, she realized she was pregnant with a fourth child despite having faithfully used a diaphragm and contraceptive jelly. When the pharmacist told me that the test was positive, it was as if I'd been told I would be deprived of oxygen. I felt condemned and punished for having dared to want to escape my biological role. The whole world seemed to be saying to me, don't try to escape. Your place is at home until the day you die. I went home and I was obsessed by the memory of a television program I'd seen as an adolescent. It was called, I think, The Prisoner. A man was trying to escape the place where he was held captive. The place was very comfortable, like some first rate hotel in the tropics with tennis, pools, splendid accommodations, dining room, and all the kinds of services. And yet, in each episode, we saw him devising a plan to escape. He always ended up recaptured by a huge round mass that emerged from the sea, radio controlled by his jailers, which threatened to smother him if he escaped. The last frame of each episode was a wrought iron gate closing on him with the clank of cold metal. It was the image that obsessed me in the drugstore. I thought I could hear the sound of a metal gate closing on me. When I went home to my room, I saw my biology books on the desk, and I began to cry as if I were about to die. And yet, I never experienced any of that anxiety with my other three children. I had wanted them. Despite her feminist leanings, despite having always considered abortion a fundamental right, Josie felt overcome with guilt at having an abortion to meet her own needs. And yet, the idea of raising another infant and giving up her studies threw her into a complete panic. Josie's husband helped her solve the conflict. He did not want a fourth child and clearly desired the abortion. He didn't want a depressed and defeated wife. After having encouraged her to return to studies, and after collaborating and making it all a success, he would feel let down if she gave up so near the goal, just when a scholarship was possible. He liked her new sense of confidence and didn't want to lose the new woman who had succeeded the housewife mother. Anyway, if she decided to have a fourth child, he couldn't afford to educate the other three, and he counted on her contribution to relieve the actual burden of his economic responsibilities. Josie had the abortion, but in an extremely conflicted state of mind. She quit therapy. I did not see her for 12 years, but while writing this book, I contacted her to find out if she ever regretted her decision. She now has a doctorate in nutritional science and directs a research lab. Her three children are in college. Here is her response. No, I never regretted my decision. It was the right one, but one thing I regret terribly, that life is not perfect. There is war and there is abortion, and there are many other difficult choices. I wanted to have that child and at the same time not lose myself, but it was impossible. A choice had to be made and I made it, but I feel grateful to that little being who only lived in me for 3 weeks. All the decisions I've made since that time have been made with a different awareness. An awareness that life has its price, my own life included, and that even the life of an aborted fetus may have meaning. I'm a nutritionist now. I teach courses and give workshops for pregnant women in several hospitals, and I've reached an important grant for research in the third world. It involves improving the diet of pregnant women and newborns in certain parts of Africa using local products. I will be going there soon. Somehow knowing what my profession cost me has always helped me give my best and never accept halfway measures from myself. My husband had to stop working for 3 years after the abortion when I was beginning my doctorate because he had several successive heart attacks. Perhaps he had felt a fourth child was beyond his strength. I helped him a lot. I went to work at the same time I was writing my thesis so as to give him a complete rest for 2 years. He would probably be dead if he'd not taken those 2 years to look after himself and make the changes in his life. He's now in good shape and working part-time, our family as well. If ever my daughter or one of my friends had to choose an abortion, I would try to help her not waste her energy in feeling guilty. I tried to help her understand that a grown woman has the ability to choose, must never have behaved like a little girl wanting a doll. I tell her that it's often necessary to say no to children for their own good. Charity begins at home is a maxim that women should take very seriously. The metaphor of birth. My body, too, has felt the thrill of pain, and I called on Artemis, queen of the bow. She has my reverence always as she goes in company of the gods. Because childbirth is an archetypal experience, it is also one of the most meaningful metaphors that represent the torment of creation. We bring forth a book, a painting, a film, a discovery. Some interpreters of myths have considered Artemis's gynecological function as protector of women in labor, as an echo of an older pre-Hellenic myth, Cretan perhaps or Asiatic, in which Artemis was one of the manifestations of the goddess mother. But the subsequent evolution of the myth presents an Artemis who never becomes a mother and yet is continually invoked by women during childbirth. Another way of associating the Virgin with women in labor must be possible. Otherwise, mother goddesses Gaia, Rhea, Demeter would have claimed that prerogative. It's true that the myths evolve constantly, but when a certain representation endures throughout that evolution, we can take it to be significant. Therefore, there was good reason to see Artemis, the virgin queen of animals, as the protector of women in labor. She is also a valid symbol for all of those individuals, male and female, who are about to give birth to an important piece of work. The body of a woman during labor is receiving the most extraordinary level of animal impulses that a human being can experience. It makes sense then that Artemis was the goddess of childbirth because of her intimacy with nature, with the wilderness, and with female animals. All of our human experiences, childbirth, along with the experience of being born, remains the wildest. Sexuality can also bring us closer to our animal nature, but this is Dionysos territory. Women who are given birth often say they felt that they were battling a ferocious beast who was tearing at their bellies, and they were in the state of animal consciousness. This kind of awareness, personified by Artemis, allows a woman to abandon herself to the powerful work of nature. To resist creates more pain because the contractions, justly termed labor, become unbearable for a woman who hasn't learned or doesn't learn under the pressure of the moment to submit to the attack. Civilized restraint and concern about one's appearance disrupt the movements of a female body in labor. Neither is there a place for emotional hysteria, which is too human an expression that disturbs the beast. Verbal lamentations and tearful supplications are often a sign that something is blocking her ability to concentrate. She is going through the experience like a suffering woman, a tortured human being, because many interruptions, technological discussions, ineffective medical procedures, drugs, or the noisy traffic is a typical delivery room. Prevent her from concentrating on the rising contractions as when one gallops forward with ever increasing speed. There's no question of stumbling during this headlong gallop because the animal and rider are attached to each other as the soul is to the body. The frightening rhythm will continue to the end until the child is led to the shore, wet from the crossing, mother and child equally exhausted. Medea spoke for many when she said, "I'd rather fight 1,000 battles than give birth to one child." The Artemis who rides wild horses and enters into playful combat with animals was my model during labor. I saw her trotting, then galloping, then jumping on the back of a high-spirited horse, and that vision helped me to maintain a level of ferocious energy up to the time of birth. But these images appear at other moments as well. Artistic creation, like pregnancy and birth, is an effort of the entire being through which we deliver, and a supreme burst of energy, the product of our gestation, a child or a piece of work. Both require time, so much time that the artist often feels unable to go on. So heavy is he with the work, like a woman in her last month of pregnancy, dragging himself around upon the delivery of the finished piece. In both cases, a large dose of patience is needed, and confidence in the natural processes of gestation and creation, which for the most part remain below the conscious level. Like a mother, the artist broods over his work with all the love of which he is capable, and his unshakable will turns regularly into a kind of obsession. The artist and the pregnant woman have a physical trait in common: eyes that focus elsewhere, turned toward what is ripening. The metaphor can be pursued further. The woman giving birth forgets her own culture and is swept along by the primitive force that inhabits her. People knowledgeable about childbirth know there's a moment when the baby's head passes through the cervix that a woman's voice becomes harsh and animal-like, and her cries seem to come from another place, from her animal past. This inhuman cry experienced by a woman is coming from another, more primitive personality, is an Artemisian epiphany, untamed nature that has taken possession of her. Hermes, the god who opens doors, is also invoked during childbirth, and he plays a role here by facilitating the opening up of the whole being. Once open, no woman has the power to resist pushing the baby out, and it's that push, that strength, that we can imagine as belonging to Artemis with her powerful thighs. As soon as the effort has been made and the baby is there, the woman returns to the normal consciousness and acquired manners, and that only and then only can she welcome her child with human feeling. Artemis slips back into the depths of the forest. Is this experience of the wild a valid symbol for artistic creativity? Is giving birth to a work of art all that ferocious? What is the role of the animal spirit in artistic work? To put forth an exhaustive effort to produce a long-term work requires the participation of the body. That's where the motive power is in the breath. One feels possessed, seized, eaten by some beast who won't let go until the work achieves the level of perfection of which it's capable. Whatever it is, writing, painting, acting, playing, or composing music, or more prosaically, writing a thesis, designing a house, writing up a report, even if it all seems to take little physical energy, even if one is seated for long hours in an intellectual task, the animal is present. It is part of the effort. If we treat it with scorn and it strikes back and makes us ill, dispirited, or worse yet, it takes off like a cat fed up with being neglected, leaving us alone without vitality. Our animal spirit is essential to that hidden kind of intelligence that flows through our body like a carnal memory, and without which there is no creativity. One feels its undeniable presence through tiny pulsations that contain a new idea, the right note, a certain color, a turn of phrase that is exactly right. Our physical reactions serve as a guide, and through dreams, symptoms, fantasies, and the intuitions of the animal spirit, teaches us constantly how it wants to be treated if it is to remain our ally. If we fail to pay attention to it, it threatens us with reprisals. It's difficult to create anything if the body is scorned. This is what Michelle's dream teaches us, a dream inhabited by a strange beast. At 25, Michelle was enrolled in art school and was at the beginning of a career as a furniture designer. Like Josie, she left it all behind to raise a family. Now that her youngest child is a teenager and she's 42, she's offered a chance to pick up her career again, provided she can put together a portfolio showing what she's capable of. Before attacking the portfolio itself, she begins with a few exercises, minor pieces to get her hand back in, to which she accords only bits of time and energy. One morning, full of enthusiasm, she jumps in her car, goes to the bookstore, and comes back with $200 worth of books with the intention of catching up on her field. She then buys enough artists, supplies, and an art store to put together a whole art portfolio and more. For a whole week, she is intensely absorbed in reading and working to the point of neglecting meals for her family and not answering the phone. She feels seized by a passion more pervasive than sex. At the same time, she fears it may all become too demanding and her family may suffer, despite repeated encouragement from her husband. A demon whispers in her ear that she's too old and it's too late to recapture her artistic talent and that she wasted money on all those purchases. This last was particularly absurd since Michelle is rather extravagant and doesn't hesitate to buy what she wants. At the end of the first week, feeling guilty of neglecting her family, she shuts the door of her workshop in the middle of the afternoon, goes to the supermarket, examines carefully the new products, and spends the rest of the day preparing an unusually elaborate meal for a weekday. She spends the evening watching television and goes to bed in a bad mood. This is what she dreams. I dream about a small, hungry looking animal with a face and teeth like a wolf, but small in size as a squirrel. This creature clings to a branch of a very old tree in the forest where I'm walking. It's dusk and there's not much light. Despite the darkness, I go towards the tree and look up to the branch where the animal is watching me. As soon as I look directly into its eyes, it jumps gracefully onto my shoulder and fastens onto me as if I were a branch. I'm scared. I figure there's no way to dislodge it because it's only attached with its feet and it has me by the neck, its teeth ready to tear out my jugular vein. I know it won't bite me if I go along with it, intuitively, as if I controlled it from within my signals from the animal. I return home to the door of my workshop, and I understand then very clearly that I must go to work immediately and continue until I've recovered all my artistic powers. Then and only then will the animal let me go, without hurting me in any way. But if I refuse, his teeth will sink into my neck and I will bleed to death. Michelle concluded from this dream that she had no choice. Either she would give birth to a portfolio or she would lose her vitality. She got back to work seriously, and within 6 months, she completed her portfolio. Unfortunately, it was too late to get the job she wanted, but she became an artist again and it was confident about finding another job. That opportunity came a year later after displaying some of her work in a neighborhood cultural center. The dream animal had been a guide, a messenger from Artemis. Once the work is finished, every artist feels emptied and exhausted, like a new mother who's still bloodied and sweaty and dry mouthed, sips orange juice before falling back on a pillow. Apollo, the god most often associated with intellectual achievement, is certainly not the only archetype to influence the creative spirit. Variations in personality can explain why artists develop differing relationships to the intellect, with more or less importance accorded to Artemis or to Apollo. But the artist influenced by Artemis reveals a certain indifference to the work once it's produced. Society's acceptance of is of no particular interest, since he works at his art because he needs to do it. He can no more stop for his flow of self-expression than a woman can stop a child from being born. The artist who denies his art does it at the risk of pain and neuroses. No outward display, no mannerisms, no sentimentality for the creator either. He must ride his imagination at a gallop and not miss a beat. Childbirth and artistic creation reflect the two poles of nature, the generosity that creates life and the harshness that devastates and sometimes kills the body or the soul. Dreams in which a pregnant woman sees herself dying seem to derive from the same archetypal reality. One might say medicine has changed things, and today few women die giving birth. The time has also passed when artists almost starved themselves to buy their tubes of paint, and yet the fear of annihilation felt by the artist and the pregnant woman still exists. A doctor can show a woman all kinds of statistics to prove that she has nothing to worry about, and an artist may be privately wealthy and never lack for anything. But the basic anxiety will not change because alongside physical destruction, there is the failure of the personality to express itself, the death of the soul. Some women, after the birth of a child, only survive as someone's mother. The virginal identity, the sense of autonomy can be wiped out, and those who are not aware of these risks are simply naive. Many pregnant women sense this danger, which is the source of their fear. When a woman says she doesn't want a child because she isn't ready and needs first to develop her own personality, she's not being capricious. Her life is at stake. And even if an unwanted pregnancy doesn't threaten her life physically, she could harm herself in another way. The destruction of the soul is not visible, but it is just as real as the destruction of the body. Surviving with a broken spirit is not really living. The cure for guilt. Just as cleaning up contamination won't be enough to create an ecological balance, decriminalizing abortion has not brought us a society that's aware of its reproductive power. We need to invent rituals, think up symbols, propose new ideas, and create a network of support for women and couples so that they can make the decision in a guilt-free state of mind. Contraceptive failure is a mistake and not a moral lapse. There is no wrongful intent.